Late afternoon turned Route 44 into a wavering mirror. Aurora Lancaster eased her platinum coupe onto the shoulder, exactly where the rusted Carter and Cumberland auto sign slipped into her rearview frame. The car hadn't failed her. She had failed it. Last night, in her parents' carriage house, she'd slid a tiny plastic clip off the fuel pump relay with trembling hands and a YouTube tutorial paused at 117. She stood very still so the scene would look real. In her pocket, the thin smell of motor oil clung to black nitrile gloves. In her chest, a sharper scent, fear that the man she'd chosen from a distance might indeed be kind, and that kindness would make her lie unforgivable. A tow truck rumbled up and exhaled to a stop. The man who stepped down wore a navy shirt with Malik stitched over the pocket, shoulders broad, forearms sun-browned, eyes that checked the person before the machine. "Need a hand?" he asked, voice warm enough to steady air. "My car just betrayed me," she said, and even the joke shook. He popped the hood. His hands moved without swagger, careful, precise, fluent. "Fuel delivery," he said after a minute. "Let me tow you to the shop. Check everything. Safest for the car, safest for you." The way he said you made her look up. In that small shift, she knew she'd chosen the right man and the wrong method. In the cab, she laced her fingers together to hide the tremor. A tiny clip had stopped an engine. What would this tiny lie do to a life? Carter and Como wasn't pretty, it was true. Pegboard tools by size, a chipped coffee pot, a radio humming old soul. "Sorry for the mess," Malik said, although nothing was out of place. He lifted the Mercedes, slid beneath and called out, "Fuel pump, yeah, but something's off." He rolled out, frowning. This connector was taken off recently. Not where. Deliberate. Any reason someone might want to scare you? The concern hurt more than any accusation. "I'd had a dealer service 2 weeks ago," she lied, and felt the lie settle like grit between teeth. "Either way, I'll make it right. I don't gamble with people's safety." He met her eyes on the last word. 2 hours collapsed into 20 minutes as he worked and talked. About his grandfather Otis, who taught him to listen to engines. About opening the shop at 29 instead of taking a safer dealership job. About dreaming of a third bay. She listened and felt her life lower its guard. "All set," he said at last, lowering the car. "New pump, full safety check. You're good. Let me take you to dinner to say thank you," she blurted, courage outrunning caution. "You don't have to." "I want to. You choose." He weighed the room, then her. "Miss Lila's kitchen. Best catfish in the state. No one cares who sits with whom. Tomorrow 7? 7, she said, and surprised herself again. Miss Lila's smelled like cinnamon and fryer oil and weekends. Malik arrived with 2 people. "Aurora, this is my sister Zuri and my best friend Darius," he said. "My truth filters." Zuri's handshake was firm, her gaze protective. Darius's nod was polite and distant. They asked few questions, all of them heavy. Where she worked, Sterling and Crane. Where she grew up, Litchfield County. Whether her family would be thrilled she was eating here. "My parents don't know I'm here," Aurora said gently. "And no, they wouldn't be thrilled." Zuri's mouth twitched. "At least you're honest." They ate, and the table warmed. Zuri told stories of Malik as a kid rebuilding a lawnmower that never asked to be reborn. Darius talked about clients who mistook him for the contractor instead of the architect. Aurora listened, learned, and wanted. Outside under a buzzing streetlight, Malik leaned on her fender. "You passed," he said. "Not because you were perfect, because you were real." She swallowed. "Now." "About real. When my car died, convenient timing. That connector didn't fall off on its own. Did you do it?" Every future branched lie and keep the dream, or tell the truth and risk it. She had obeyed too many rules she didn't choose. She refused to start this with another. "Yes," she whispered. Silence stretched and then settled. "Why?" he asked, clear, not cruel. "Because 3 months ago, I watched you help a stranger for 40 minutes and refuse money," she said, words tumbling. "Because no one in my world is kind when no one's looking. Because I didn't know how else to cross the chalk circle my life drew around me. I was wrong. I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry to be here. He exhaled. No more lie, he said at last. Ever, she promised. Then let's try this for real, he said. Just know, my world doesn't exist to make your family comfortable. And mine doesn't exist to make your world possible, she answered. Maybe that's why we'll need each other. He smiled, small and wrecking. Tomorrow, coffee, daylight, honesty, light. She drove home with shaking hands and texted her mother, Can't make dinner. I have plans. The reply cut like crystal. Cancel. This is important. Aurora turned off her phone and let the night answer for her. Daylight honesty tasted like burnt coffee and new chances. Walking Riverside Park, Aurora told Malik about galas where Evelyn and Charles Lancaster curated rooms like portfolios. About Bennett Hale, the Yale legacy box her family kept trying to wrap her life in. Malik told her about Otis, about choosing independence over a salary that bought silence, about Zuri's case files that weighed as much as grief, about Darius drawing buildings the city didn't know it needed. By week 2, she held a work light without apologizing. By week 3, she changed a tire. Badly. By week 4, they stopped pretending this was a gentle slope. It was a cliff they both stepped over. The world chose them back at the farmer's market. Tomatoes glowed like planets. Aurora Elise, her mother's voice cut the air. Evelyn in a floral dress. Charles granite-jawed. Bennett offended by a future that didn't include him. Introduce us to your friend, Evelyn said, the pause a blade. Aurora reached for Malik's hand, to steady herself, not to claim. Mom, Dad, Bennett, this is Malik Carter, my boyfriend. The word detonated. Since when? Charles demanded. Since I stopped asking permission, she said, surprised by the steel in her own throat. We will discuss this privately, Evelyn said. Say whatever you need to say in front of him, Aurora replied, feeling Malik's fingers tighten once. I'm here, then ease. You've got this. What will people think? Evelyn hissed. You are a Lancaster. There is a way things are done. And a way people are treated, Aurora said. You haven't even asked his last name. Bennett scoffed. We're not doing a spectacle. With quiet precision, Malik spoke. With respect, if the first things you notice are my job and my skin instead of who I am, that isn't concern. That's prejudice. We are not racist, Evelyn snapped, reciting a line she'd never rehearsed with herself. You don't have to announce it, Malik said. You can hear it. Charles stepped forward. Continue this and there will be consequences, financial and otherwise. The music of the cage. Fear flared and then clarified. Then I'll face them, Aurora said. With him. They left to a wake of whispers. In the truck, she shook and laughed. I think I just chose a life. I will never ask you to choose me over yourself, Malik said, but I'll stand with you while you choose the truth. The truth arrived Monday wearing a suit. Gerald Crane closed his office door and poured corporate concern. Your father suggested a leave. There are optics. My work is flawless, Aurora replied. We're a family firm. I resign, she said, cutting the performance short. She boxed her desk, walked past portraits of men who'd never learned her name, stepped into noon that felt like midnight, and called Malik from the curb with a breaking laugh. I just detonated my career for a man and a principle. Which scares you more? The part where you think it has to be either, he said. Come to the shop. At Carter & Co., Zuri hugged her until her keys fell. Darius brought donuts. Malik set a ledger on the counter. My books are held together by sweat and stubbornness, he said. You could make us legit. Pay's not what you're used to, Zuri warned. I just gave up a trust fund, Aurora said. I can survive giving up catered lunch. That night in the small apartment Zuri helped her find, 2 rooms smelling like a dare, Aurora taped an ocean postcard above a thrifted desk and wrote herself a promise. No more polite lies. Not at work, not at home, not at the table with people I love. 2 weeks later, her younger sister Sophie called, voice like contraband. Instagram says you look happy. Mom pretends you're in Switzerland. Dad pretends you don't exist. Can I meet him? Aurora cried into a dish towel. Yes. Autumn lit Connecticut on fire. Aurora learned the kind of tire that comes from purpose, not performance. She moved Carter & Co. online. Malik explaining brake pads like a lab demo. Zuri grading ridiculous car hacks. Darius time-lapsing rust into rebirth. Bookings climbed 30% in 6 weeks. Malik signed a loan for a second lift after Aurora negotiated like a drawn sword. Pettiness followed. A one-star review laced with slurs. A caller asking if the blonde receptionist could find the real mechanic. Aurora screenshotted, breathed, and posted a reply sharp and clean. We fix clunks, squeals, and assumptions. Appointments welcome, bigotry is not. Shares, new customers. Miss Lila slid an extra cobbler across the counter for backbone. Sophie met Malik at the Copper Mug, a diner where pie was a sacrament. Are you going to break my sister's heart? She asked without preface. I'm going to work very hard not to, he said. Good, Sophie nodded, then leaned toward Aurora. Mom will get there first. Dad later. Brace accordingly. Bills arrived. A letter from Charles's attorney used words like disbursement and breach. Malik sat beside Aurora while she read them twice, then tucked the pages into the freezer like she'd done with scary books in middle school. When they thawed, they were still ugly. She mailed back a single page. Thank you for the reminder that money was always the leash. Consider this my notice I won't be walked. On a rain-scrubbed Thursday, May Tan showed up with takeout and tough love. You're doing the work, she said, but your old silence protected you. It won't protect anyone else. So Aurora raised her voice. At Sterling and Crane, she had chaired a diversity task force that sent glossy emails no one read. Now she stood in front of a phone camera with a gray streak of grease on her wrist. Hire black-owned trades. Tip your mechanic like you tip your barista. Stop assuming you can read skill by clothes. Trolls crawled out. So did loyalty. Miss Lila shared it with a caption that made Aurora cry in a grocery aisle. In October, Edison Tire offered Malik a partnership. Cash now, control later. He said no. Aurora didn't tell him until weeks after that she'd lain awake that night, imagining the easier life they could have taken and refused. The first meeting with Evelyn happened where it had to. Maple and Maine Coffee House, under a chandelier of mason jars trying too hard. Evelyn looked thinner, older, all her relentless poise doing math with pain. I'm not here to debate, Evelyn said. Then why are you here? Aurora asked. Because I miss my daughter, Evelyn said, and every speech Aurora prepared dissolved. They sat. Evelyn cupped her mug like it might run. I spent my life curating room, she said, not just for status, for safety. If I wore the right dress, hosted the right guest, men like your father listened. I mistook presentation for power. I mistook control for love. I don't need you to approve, Aurora said carefully. I need you to see me. Evelyn nodded, eyes bright. Tell me about him. So Aurora did. How Malik checked on customers after storms. How he could hear a failing bearing like a violinist hears flat. How he refused to sell what people didn't need. How he made room for her without making her smaller. He's not my rebellion, she finished. He's my reality. I can't promise grace, Evelyn said, but I can try. Christmas delivered an unexpected knock. An older couple stepped into Carter & Co. Mr. Carter? The man asked. I'm Thomas Lancaster, Evelyn's younger brother. This is my wife, Patricia. Thomas smiled with the humility of someone who'd once left the club and found a life. My brother values appearance over oxygen, he said. I did too once. Then I loved someone enough to stop. We wanted to look you in the eye and say, don't go back to the cage because the bars are familiar. Patricia hugged Aurora. Come to dinner, she said. Bring whatever you are. Our table holds. After they left, Malik laughed softly. Your family's a Russian novel. Yours is a gospel, Aurora said, and both were true. Spring greened the lot lines. The second lift sang. The chalkboard wait list filled by Tuesday noon. On Fridays, Darius brought empanadas and called it brand building, which was mostly an excuse to feed people he loved. Aurora measured her days by problem solved, not optics managed. She learned torque, and the poetry of torque, tight enough to trust, never so tight you strip the threads. Love worked like that too. Sophie texted, Mom's ready for lunch. No Bennett. Pinky swear. Aurora sent Malik a heart hands emoji. He replied with a wrench and the tiniest panic face. The day before, she caught herself in another woman's windshield, a sleek coupe idling across the street, driver with careful hair and nervy eyes watching the bay doors the way Aurora once had. Aurora tapped the window. The woman startled and rolled it down. "He's a good man," Aurora said kindly. "If you're thinking about faking a breakdown to meet him, don't. Just walk in and say hello." "I don't know what you mean," the woman lied badly. "You do," Aurora smiled. "I did exactly what you're doing, and it worked, but we've been honest ever since. He deserves that. So do you." Back inside, Malik gave her a side-eye. "Scare off the competition? Rescued someone from becoming the worst version of me," she said. "That's leadership," he grinned. Miss Lila hosted them that night. "My favorite troublemakers," she declared, sliding them into a booth that had seen more beginnings than a courthouse. Zuri and Darius came. May arrived late with hot sauce. Plates emptied, glasses clinked. "To origin stories," Darius said. "The messy ones." "To lies we stopped telling," Zuri added. "To wheels aligned," May said, because she couldn't help herself. "To breaking down and breaking open," Miss Lila chimed from the pass. The next day, lunch with Evelyn happened under a tent, where noon light made everyone look honest. Evelyn arrived alone and tried Malik's first name like a bridge she intended to cross. "Do you love my daughter?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Not because she left you, but because she found herself." "Do you intend to marry her?" He glanced at Aurora. Their private math answered, "Someday." "When timing is something we choose, not something we prove." "I can work with that," Evelyn said, surprising herself. They spoke about insurance, expansion, suppliers who lost their lift shipment until Aurora CC'd the right-wrong person with the right statute. Evelyn laughed, shocked into admiration. "You're scarier than I was at your age," she said. "I learned from the best," Aurora replied, meaning Miss Lila and her mother in the same breath. By June, they launched Fix Forward. For every 10 break jobs, 1 free for a single parent referred by a school counselor. Zuri cried. Darius designed a logo. Miss Lila put a jar on her counter and called it the Break It to Make It Fund, despite Aurora's protests. The local paper ran a story. A dealership manager offered a handshake Malik washed off twice. Progress was like that. Messy, incremental, occasionally glorious. One humid afternoon, Aurora slid under a Civic on a creeper and kissed Malik's shoulder. "Do you ever think about the night I cheated?" she asked. "The fuel pump," he said, smiling. "I forced a meet cute. I don't know if I'm proud of it." "I am," he said. "Not because you lied, but because you chose the truth after. The liar you were would have kept lying. The woman you are ripped the bandage off." "You're annoyingly good at metaphors," she muttered. "You date a marketer," he said. "Occupational hazard." They rolled out, grease on their arms like war paint and wedding vows. The bell over the door chimed. Sophie bounced in with iced coffees and a grin. "Family update," she said. "Uncle Thomas invited Mom to dinner with Patricia. Dad's not there yet. One Lancaster at a time." "Let him come slow," Malik said. "Some turns you take at speed, some you downshift for." "Life's a manual transmission," Aurora said. "And you finally stopped riding the clutch," he teased. They closed the shop the way they closed most days, sweeping, laughing, making lists, promising nothing they couldn't keep. Aurora leaned against the cool bay door and thought about lines, the ones drawn around her at birth, the ones she crossed to meet him, the ones they paint now around a life they chose. She had sabotaged a car to meet a man. Messy beginning. But the breakdown wasn't the point. The repair was. Not of the Mercedes, of a life. If you want a ribbon, call it fate. If you want the truth, call it work. And if you want a moral, it's this. Love isn't the soft opposite of prejudice. It's the stubborn practice that refuses to let prejudice decide. Tighten enough to trust. Never so tight you strip the threads. Aurora flipped the sign to closed. Tomorrow they would open again. They always would.